Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned into another live edition of the Locker Room Daily Report, or TLDR for short. This chat room back here, that's live at live.pirillo.com. That's connected to my Twitch account. I usually stream playing Star Wars Battlefront, including the new update that was pushed out today. But I'm not going to talk about Star Wars right now or playing video games right now. I'm going to talk about the second half of my iPad Pro review. Yesterday, I gave you at least 3 things that I like about the iPad Pro. Today I'm going to share with you 3 things that I dislike about the iPad Pro. Now here's the thing. You have to press the like button if you watch the video. You can't dislike my dislikes because they're mine. You have to like it because I'm sharing my opinions. They're just my opinions, that's all. Anyway, after I'm done telling you the things that I don't like about the iPad, in fact, dislike is probably the worst word to possibly use. Possibly. Just things that perturb me. There needs to be a perturb button, which I'm sure you would use all the time. I know. After that, I'm going to be diving into today's Pirillo picks, and oh man, cannot wait. In fact, I wore the wrong shirt. I just realized I wore the wrong shirt today. A mistake I can rectify in the future. Well, obviously, there's only one today. After I'm done sharing Pirillo Picks live with everybody, I'm going to go into answering questions, likely tech questions from the community of patrons, as well as talking about today's geek news, largely tech news. Some amount of non-tech news as well, but it's still very geeky, or in the realm of geekiness. If you want to become a patron, you get all of TLDR, usually about an hour long. Head over to chrispirillo.com for more information. Now, I'm going to hold up my iPad Pro and show you that I have an iPad Pro. Believe it or not, this is an iPad Pro. I know, people think I'm small, but no. This is not an iPad mini. It's a Pro. It's almost bigger than me. I'm going to press play on this presentation and show you all, well, the people, I was going to say, not all the patrons, just some of the patrons that pledge at a level where they get their name in every TLDR. It's a little bonus. I play it every day. I use the iPad Pro every day. This isn't just a quick review, a quick turnaround. I ended up selling most, if not all, of my older iPads. I had a few minis that were laying around that never got any usage. Of course, I exchanged my iPad Air 2, knowing that I wasn't likely to use, or I was only going to use one iPad. I only need one iPad at this time. I think it's possible that at some point in the future I may be able to take advantage of more than one iPad. However, this is pretty much a stationary iPad. Keep that in mind. This has just been my experience. I do not have an Apple Pencil. Talked about that yesterday. I do not have the keyboard case. Talked about that yesterday. There are a lot of things not to like about the iPad Pro. Now, let's forget about price, okay? And I know some people would argue, well, it's too expensive. Oh, no. You can't argue that. Because if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. If you think it's overpriced, well, that's relative. I think that in terms of the what you get in terms of the experience on an iPad, I don't know if I'd necessarily go out and recommend the iPad Pro over, say, an iPad mini. Again, it depends on the type of user that you are. My primary motivation in getting the iPad Pro wasn't necessarily the screen size, but it was specifically in relation to performance, hardware performance, in direct relation to iOS 9, as it were. So, one of the things that I don't like, now that I've said all that, about the iPad Pro is that iOS 9... oh, this is damning. It runs okay. That I don't like. It just runs okay. Despite this being, amply powered, spec to the gills, plenty of RAM, plenty of CPU speed and GPU speed, I still experience a fair amount of jitteriness, frame drops on the iPad Pro. That should not happen. It should not exist on any iOS device. And yet, with the introduction of iOS 7, continuing with iOS 8, and now iOS 9, Apple continues to roll out unoptimized software experiences. The iPad Pro is no exception. That seems to be the rule, and that really kind of upsets me. Because that, to me, devalues the device. You may expect that a piece of hardware that is spec to the gills has all the specs, whatever those are, whatever that means. Great hardware, lackluster software experience. So, out of the box, not only does iOS 9 sometimes not work well in the sense of you see frame drops and animations and overall jitteriness. I've also found that many of the apps on the iPad Pro are not optimized. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, in Messages, and I'm not going to show you because I don't want to violate anybody's privacy, you've got the list on the side, and then you've got the Messages option in the middle, but a lot of white space. There's almost too much white space in some of these apps. It's like, whereas it looked okay on the iPad Air screen and the iPad mini screen, they're playing with a few more pixels on the iPad Pro. And, in terms of what could be used. And there's so much white space in these default apps. It just looks horrendous. There's a lot of lack of optimization, for the lack of a better word, in iOS 9. Not just in terms of performance, but also in terms of design. iOS needs an overhaul, or it needs to accommodate the iPad Pro. And it doesn't. And I'm not talking about apps that you can download. That's a different story. Because that's my next complaint, is that many of the apps that you might use on a regular basis still have not been optimized for the larger screen. So much like you might remember, and you may still use older apps optimized for smaller screened iPhones on your newer iPhone, and they look blown up, and it looks bad. It looks even worse. An older app, I hesitate to call one out, that the text is larger. Everything's larger because it's not optimized for a higher resolution screen, so it just gets blown up. Well, the same thing happens with older iPad apps that have not been optimized or are aware that the iPad Pro exists and cannot accommodate it accordingly. And so those apps could be better optimized. But again, Apple hasn't even gone that far with software optimization. I mean, if Apple, I've taken Apple to task before. They've slammed Android and Google for this, the lack of tablet screen optimization, blown up phone apps. Apple can't be throwing, stones in glass houses anymore. Because as far as I'm concerned, Apple it's been falling behind in the design game for quite some time. And it looks they did not put their best foot forward with software in the iPad Pro, unoptimized. Best iOS 9 on an iPad experience in terms of performance. It's better than the iPad Air 2, which got downright nasty with iOS 9. Nasty. Oh, bad. Horrible. Gut-wrenching. Bad. It got better with this. So an unoptimized software experience across the board, not just in terms of design, but sometimes even in terms of performance. Two things that drive me nuts. Another thing that is driving me nuts is the fact that, and this kind of goes without saying, and I can't necessarily slam Apple for this, over every other company, but this is a big screen. And what I've learned that when it comes to big screens, that's a lot of surface. It's a huge surface. Huge. Well, okay, not to be confused with the Surface. Let me see here. I'm going to turn that off so you can get a nice view. Where the hell's the damn button? Okay, give me a second. Hang on. I'm trying to find there we go. Got to find the power button. It gets marred and gunked up quickly. It's a big surface. It's a big area. And that means it's going to attract not just fingerprints. I mean, every screen does. But there's a lot more to keep clean. A lot more to gunk up. I cleaned this 3 days ago, and I've used it. I wouldn't say necessarily incessantly, but it's just, I know it's what has it got, the oleophobic coating, but I find myself having to constantly clean it from not just dust. The smart cover protects it from the dust and debris, more like fingerprint smudges, and it just you turn on the screen and a lot of that melts away, but then you turn it off and you have no choice but to go, ugh. So it's just something that I'm not a fan of, personally. Something that I don't like. Because I don't like something doesn't mean you don't have to like something. You're free to make your own choices. You're welcome to make your own choices. I don't care. I really genuinely don't. Because you're not using this, and I'm not using whatever you choose to use. I mean, that's really the end of the story there. I feel the same way about all the choices that you might make for yourself and the choices I may make for myself. I'm sure there are many other things that I could choose not to like about the iPad, just like there are many things that I've chosen to like about the iPad. Chosen, really. I didn't choose. It just happened. But I really find that they could have done a substantially better job specifically with software, and that is really what puts the iPad Pro within the realm of B class device instead of an A class. In terms of the hardware, I think it is A. In terms of software, B, leaning more towards B minus, borderline C territory. It's not that good. It's ample. It works, but it needs a lot of massaging and a lot of help. But Apple does as well. It's been really slipping in terms of software optimization for the past couple of years. That's Tim Cook's Apple. Don't know. So that's what I don't like about my iPad Pro. Can't really find myself using anything else, again, because of the better iOS 9 experience on the iPad Pro. But man, it's relative, man. It's hard to talk about this kind of thing because it's just, how do you explain, poor design issues and how they impact you? Great piece of hardware is worthless with poor software, and unfortunately Apple's increasingly showing its hand that it's lost a lot of its design principles and optimization principles. I'm not happy. I'll admit that. Adam said, have you tried using Google Docs on the iPad Pro? The on-screen keyboard takes up most of the screen, so you barely see the document. Well, that's the problem. The Google Docs is just one app that's not optimized for the big screen. So, whereas it was the best that you could do on a smaller iPad, without optimization, everything's blown up, and it just looks even worse on the bigger screen. Some apps, it's more dramatic than on other apps. On games, it's not as prevalent. I mean, it's not as sharp, certainly, with the graphics, but it's just, there's a lot of catching up to do. I don't know. I find myself finding it very challenging to recommend Apple's products outright anymore. There are a lot of caveats. Apple's products come with a lot of caveats. A lot. And much of it has to do with their software experience, which is the biggest problem I see with the iPad Pro. So it's pretty much all in software. And that's the thing. Some people get mad at me because my preference is to pay more attention to the software than the hardware. I don't care if it's a great piece of hardware. I don't. I just do not care. There's a lot of great hardware out there, but the software is... That's not a good face, by the way. With or without hair. Gonna move on to Pirillo picks, because quite honestly, I'm tired of talking about things that I don't like. Sorry it took me so long to do the iPad Pro review. I just completely forgot. I just don't think about it anymore. I use it. It's a tool. It's a fancy screwdriver with poor software. Then I'm going to move on. Can I move on? And then we'll answer questions from the community and then talk about today's geek or tech news. Can we do that? If you want to hear all of TLDR, head over to chrispirillo.com for more information. Today's free podcast highlight was brought to you by all of my active patrons from chrispirillo.com. If you want access to the full TLDR episodes, both audio, video, past, present, and future, which can be up to an hour long or longer, with even more tech insight from me every weekday, plus other bonus content without ads, and support me at the same time, you can sign up to become one of my supernomies too. This is just a brief taste of what I'm producing for you daily. Again, get more through chrispirillo.com.